Hello, my name is Rachel Rome, and this is my community in words and pictures. I just want to preface this by saying that I definitely have a lot of specifically social pain surrounding the place I grew up, which is why I moved to Massachusetts, where I am now. But I grew up in a small town called Wantage, New Jersey. Here's a delightful picture. It's very beautiful. The population is about 11,358, according to the United States Census Bureau. I believe it was in 2016, that was the census total. 10,495 of those people are white, which just tells you how not diverse my town is. 91 would identify as black only, 130 Asian only. 343 people identify as two or more races. 608 identify as Hispanic or Latino. And there are 9,918 who identify as white alone with no Hispanic or Latino roots. So the median age in my town is 46, a relatively older population. There are 5,592 males and 5,470 females. That's another picture of one of the trails. There's a lot of hiking in my town. About the only thing to do. So this is where Wantage is located in the state of New Jersey. If you can see that it kind of comes to a tip there. It's like the very top of New Jersey. Pennsylvania's just above, and New York is, or I'm sorry, Pennsylvania's to the left, New York is just above. My road actually ends in New York State, so. And this is a map that the Wantage Historical Society put together with some landmarks and whatnot that are significant to Wantage. Wantage Historical Society being one of the only institutions and or opportunities, if you will, in Wantage. So this is what I had for formal institutions. It's a super small town. I mean, it's like kind of large as far as surface area goes, but it's very, very rural, so it's a lot of farmland. But this is on top, the Clifton E. Lawrence School, and I don't know if you'll be able to see the Wantage School at the bottom. This is where I went to the top school. I went to 1st and 2nd grade. The bottom school I went to 3rd through 5th grade in. Both of those resided in my town. Yeah, a lot of judgment, a lot of social pain I encountered in those buildings. It's considered a very safe town according to bestplaces.com. Crime ranked from 1 being low crime, 100 being high crime. Wantage falls in about 7.1, which is very much lower than the US average of 22.7. And property crime is ranked at 16.1, US average being 35.4. So pretty low crime area. I can tell you from experience, when things did go down, it was like a huge deal. It was like the talk of the town. And anyone involved in crimes were considered to be like horrible delinquents, just to give you an idea. As far as goods and services go, primarily what Wantage has to offer are restaurants. So from the left, that's the Double S Diner. I used to work there. The middle one is called the Elias Cole, and the far right is the Sussex Inn. I also used to work there. Yeah, really not a whole lot going on in my town. Wasn't a lot of community-based life, especially for young people. A lot of people that I went to high school with ended up using substances really problematically because unfortunately there wasn't really anything for kids to do, teenagers to do. So drugs were often the the choice. So as far as relationships that bind people, something that Wantage is rich in is religion. There's a lot of churches. The top left is the Old Clove Church. My parents are a part of a society to like save it because it's got like no electricity, no heat, no nothing. But it's the oldest church in the town, so they try to open it like once a year. to have people come and attend worship service, which is really cool that they do that. And then St. Monica's is the Catholic Church, and that's right next to it on the top right. Bottom left is the sign for where the Wantage United Methodist Church is going to be built. And then right next to it is my home church, where I grew up, which is the Sussex United Methodist Church. Again, a lot of religion and unfortunately a lot of moral judgment because of that. I identify within the LGBT community, and I was ridiculed a lot growing up by members of my church community, members in school. It's called every name under the sun, pretty much. So yeah, a lot of judgment around that. So as far as commonalities of values and goals, maybe this is my biased experience, which I will admit was not the most positive, but religion is very prominent, specifically Christianity. Catholicism and Protestantism are probably about equal, but it's definitely a place that values the nuclear family, the mom, dad together with kids, and if somebody were outside of that, they would probably experience some amount of judgment. My childhood best friend growing up, her parents got divorced, and I'll never forget some of the awful things that people would say just surrounding the topic of divorce, which doesn't even seem like that controversial of a thing nowadays, as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, it was very controversial for whatever reason. And that stereotype of the American dream, the white picket fence lifestyle, that's very much valued by the people in my town. And it's hard to find people that don't think that way. And when people don't think that way, they're often very much ridiculed for it. So this is my home right here, this little lot. So you can just see how spaced out people are, and maybe that's where part of the judgmental kind of vibe comes from, because people aren't constantly exposed to each other, and there is a lot of room for privacy, and I guess for families to go back to their home and whisper about other families. I don't know. But as far as the whole person principle that was discussed in the article, I don't know if I necessarily would say that my town is like that, because usually people are pinned with an identity based on their actions. And for example, my childhood best friend whose parents were divorced, they were the broken family, the divorced family. And people, like I said, there's a lot of substance use among young people. They're all junkies or druggies or whatever it is. Just one activity tends to often define a person's identity for whatever reason there. And I guess I'm kind of furthering that stereotype by speaking about my town so generally and saying that the people in my experience have behaved this way. I'm certain there are people there that don't feel that way necessarily, but I haven't been exposed to them so much. Predictability. So this was where I went to high school, which was also not so great. I would say for the most part, things are pretty predictable there. People go to work, they go to school, live in their little boxes with all their property. There's a lot of wealthy people that live there, a lot of mansions and whatnot. So you have that whole group of people, and then I'll get into later, there's a center of town where the lower socioeconomic persons might live, and there's a lot of judgment from the outside in as far as that goes. Oftentimes they're referred to as town people, which I've always thought was relatively derogatory. And this is where I was just referring to. This is the center of town, as you could see the congestion, and that's actually the Sussex Inn that I showed earlier. These are all apartment buildings in the background, so Yeah, there definitely is that social structure and that class system very visibly in my town. If you live in town, you're seen as lower in some ways, as far as the social structure goes. I was socialized in an environment where my parents would say, like, town people, like, oh well, they're townies, so you can't expect much out of them. And that's very problematic, and that's where all that judgment stems from, is that children are raised this way by their parents, and if they don't break that cycle, they continue to judge in that way. As far as opportunities go, here is the Sussex Wantage Library to the bottom right. They do some like small events. They'll do book sales. There's like a book club there. They'll bring in like guest speakers. So I guess that would kind of be like the cultural center of Wantage, if there is a cultural center. Um, the top left is the Sussex Theatre, which I should mention, Sussex and Wantage are often used interchangeably in my town. Um, they're the same geographic location. I live in Sussex County, Wantage Township, but it's often referred to as the Sussex Wantage area. I don't know if you can see on the library, it says Sussex Wantage Library. Um, but there are several sports teams. The High Point Hawks are here, the basketball team. They also have a football team. So that's an opportunity for sports goers. And like I said, the Sussex Theatre for theater folk. And the bottom left is High Point Monument, which resides in High Point State Park, which is like the best part, I feel like, of my town, is that state park. It's absolutely beautiful. Like I mentioned earlier, a lot of hiking. It's really beautiful, and the gem of my town, the really good part of it. As far as homogeny goes, that anti-urban bias that was discussed in the article is very much present. Like I said, people look down on people that live in the center of town, which I wouldn't even consider an urban area. So I can't imagine what they might think about urban people. Um, Desire and amenities, the amenities and opportunities connected with urban areas. That's true for myself because, like I said, there really wasn't anything to do for young people, so that was always very stressful. So I did desire that, and I think a lot of others do. But you had to drive 20 minutes to the closest grocery store. It was definitely not easy to get around or have a lot of opportunities to do things of that nature. So yeah, and there are my references. It's a little about my town. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to hearing from everyone else.